this one. Hey, Derek, welcome back, mate. We have missed you. We had a little. There was a little song playing for you.
I did hear it.
Oh, okay.
I did hear the spill over you because your headphones are quite loud.
There you go. There you go. Hey, mate, great to have you back here for the Grow Wealth. Yeah, you've been missed because, quite frankly, I've had to do these shows with the Shaved Monkey. Okay, and we have had some special guest stars, and I appreciate that. And stars over it. Derek was I have it. Oh my word, Warren, thank you.
Mr. Black himself from GWC Global Wealth Club.
An absolute star himself, but it's just not the same without you. So welcome back to the couch, and thank you for saving me from the
Shaved Monkey.
no, just the embarrassment of the lack of professionalism I have to deal with.
So I'm going to jump into this one just because the people on social media will see this one. So I said, Aaron, I want to try something. Give me a 30-second countdown. He's like, yeah, no worries. And then come straight to air.
Oh, okay, there you go. Sorry. Clearly I
talk
wasn't
Mr.
listening.
Professional.
Well, what I do, you see, as I say, what I do is I build walls, okay, invisible walls. Think about the last few years. We've had the perspex up, right? And with you, there's just perspex, okay? Simple as that, mate. Great to see you. I'm just joking, Mr. Katz here, Mr. Shade Monkey himself.
You're lucky I'm trying to be professional here.
All right. Well,
keywords trying.
Okay, well, you've got the now to put it together. So let's give it a crack. Derek, mate, you've got some really interesting stuff to talk about in the show.
There's a lot been going on. Of course, when we were away, Mr. McGowan called it today.
Oh, you noticed? Okay.
I actually had time to actually see that, and wasn't it
celebrate.
fascinating? I thought it was very interesting the similarities how he quit, like Jacinda Ardern.
Oh, yeah.
Quit, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and I thought to myself, this is suspicious because.
Do you think?
Yeah, I thought to myself, this is really, really suspicious. So I'll tell you why. I was reading an article by a guy called Brian Lowe, who does an article called an email called the Daily Reckoning. I thought it was very, very cool how he did this. He said there are similarities between them and Jacinda Ardern quitting. He said the problem is that when you have a heavy-handed, you look historically on dictators.
Sure.
And he says historically, what they do when they are heavy-handed in legislation, they create enemies.
Yes.
Okay. And the problem when you create enemies is then you have to double down and be even more ruling in the further legislation you go to keep your enemies at bay.
No doubt.
And he says there's one thing in Chinese culture which they talk about is the fact that you've got the tiger that's riding the tiger, and you don't want to get off the tiger when it's in full force and in full run. And he said just the way that he quit was very, very, very unusual. And I tend to agree. If you actually look at the footage of what occurred there, as opposed to the audio bits and the video bits that the mainstream media took on board, he looked scared. He looked shaken. There was a quiver in his voice, and I thought to myself, somebody's got to him. That was just my thought. That was my initial reaction. I thought this is very, very interesting.
I've noticed a quiver has been appearing over the last, quite a period of time, actually. I have noticed quite a lot of fear in him. And I think as a leader, he really showed that, lack of leadership, quite frankly, because he did seem to be running the ship with a bit of a shake in the old hands.
The bit that I found the most, just along the lines with the same quiver, but I was watching the press conference where he actually announced it, and you look at the I forget her name, the fat one from the Labor Party, the member of Parliament, and then it had her wife on either side. And so it was really funny every time he was talking about something, and then the MP went, his wife was laughing her ass off.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering what got to him. I wonder if she has found out about his activities outside of politics.
I don't believe there's any way in the world that she doesn't know about good old Shazza. Okay, the rest of the world does. Everybody but Seven West Media know about Shazza. So no, I think there's a rather expensive divorce settlement coming.
I think soon. That's what was happening. She's like, he's going to get paid millions of dollars in his pension, and I'm going to get half of it.
Now, normally, I'm very much against that because I don't like how the system actually allows spouses to basically bleed the other spouse dry through divorce settlements. But I'm not going to lie, there's a bit of I'm feeling some satisfaction here, a little bit.
Anyway,
while that was going on, and this leads into the next story, is that there's been legislation that's come out that the Labor Party had been doing in the state of Western Australia that most people are not aware of. And today we want to highlight what that is. Travis, you're across the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act of 2021 in many, many ways. Do you want to, in a brief summary, kind of look at what's been going on and explain to people, what's been kind of pushed under the door?
I want to just quickly clarify something on that one first. we've got a guest on the things as well. We're about to introduce her. I don't think anyone is totally across this because it's actually a very, very large lot of legislation. But there's been a whole lot of new terminology that they've introduced into this legislation because originally it was a rehash of the 1974 legislation. The
Sure.
claim is, and this is actually coming from Kimmy Suckling, who was the assistant manager of the Department of Planning, Heritage, and whatever. So she actually came up on my Facebook page when I put a post about it and tried to defend this legislation, saying it's just a rehash, and it is a rehash.
Sure.
But when you do a rehash, you don't add whole entire sections to legislation. The
That's
problem is to try and work out what those extras have been. They've got all these guidelines and acts and principles and everything that they've got to run through, and those things are insane. So it's not just the legislation that you've got to read; it's the actual act itself. And then on top of those acts, you've got to look up like directories of who you can talk to, guides and regulations, when they can be charged, fee schedules. And there's so much to this act. It's not just the act, it's everything that's associated with it as well, which is extremely problematic. Now, the bit that makes this really problematic is the way it interacts with other federal and state legislation as well. So it's not just one act, it's a whole network of different acts working together to pretty much, and sorry to anyone who's got delicate ears, this is seriously going to screw farmers, miners, everyday people in the city. This is going to affect everyone from city slickers in the city all the way to country people as well.
Absolutely.
This does not affect anyone, and I'll get into that one in a minute, but I think there's someone we need to talk to as well.
Before we do, how is it going to, what's the essence of it?
Yeah. So there's two parts of it. There's also how deep you go down. So let's say you got to dig a hole. You want to put a fence in. So you got to dig a hole. Let's say the hole's 80 centimeters. Anything past 50 centimeters deep, that's 50.
Yep. Centimeters.
Yeah, 50 centimeters.
Millimeters.
So we need to get a permit from the local Aboriginal authority people. On top of that, if you, let's say it's a square meterage. So there's a couple of figures that are quoted in there. One's 100 square meters, one's 10 square meters. I think it depends on how you're doing it, whether and what area you're in. So anything, I'm using the figure of 100 square meters. If you're digging up anything that's over 100 square meters, like let's say you're clearing a fire break, you're doing some harvesting of your wheat, whatever, you've also got to get a permit as well. Now, the things they're not talking, they haven't explained yet, is if you're planting and then harvesting at the same time, is that one permit? Is it 3 permits? Is it 10 permits? What activities, or can you just get a single permit for your entire block, your entire property, your entire development, entire community? None of these details have actually come out.
Oh, it sounds a lot like The Voice, Okay, there's all this talk, but no actual detail.
The biggest difference is they're doing these workshops to try and explain it, and people still don't understand it even after the workshop.
Okay.
So I am actually going to the one in Northam on the 28th of this month. So I managed to get in before they shut down the ticket sales for that one.
Good.
So that's going to be interesting whether they actually let me in or not. And then we're going to be doing another event on the 5th, but we'll talk to our guests about that one because they know more about it. So I think it's time we bring Bernie and Christine in. So Bernie and Christine are actually farmers who this is going to be directly affecting.
So glad you actually speak to them though, because this is about affecting one of the most important thing here, the pastoral part of Western Australia. Exactly, our food cycle.
Hey, come on, you love your food.
I do. Okay, Christine, Bernie, saved my life. Come on. So we've got them on the line there. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hello, how are you going?
Great.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So you do have myself, Christine. We've got Derek on the show as well as Aaron as well. Can you hear all of us as well?
It's very faint. We're having trouble hearing you.
Okay, is that any better at all?
It is a little.
Yeah, well, okay. Sorry, that's unfortunately what we've got, but we'll give it a go.
Okay.
Thanks for being part of the show. Look, can you I won't ask the question myself. I'll throw over to you, mate.
Oh, you're
Travis?
dumping everything.
I
on
really
me
will
today.
on you on this one because look, this is such a serious issue and I want to cover it properly.
So my first question to you, Christine, from everything you've heard and read yourself, especially you and Bernie, what is your biggest concern in regards to this new legislation?
I'll just repeat the question to Bernie because I don't think he would have heard that. Of all the things that we've heard about this legislation, what is your biggest concern?
That the red tape will take too long to be able to do what we need to do as far as, say, seeding and things like that. By the time we put an application and knowing government laws and things, when we harvest time before we get the permit to put the seeding in.
So
That's Bernie's version. Mine's quite different, really. I mean, it's all tied in together. But the whole thing is unworkable, absolutely unworkable. And so I feel as if this state is going to grind to a halt because it affects so many people on so many different levels. Like farmers won't be able to run their businesses as normal. As Bernie said, if you don't get even if you apply and you do, you might not get your permit for weeks.
Right.
What if you've got to put your crop in? What if you have to attend to something? Say, for instance, your fence blows down and your stock are getting out and you have to rejig your fences, but you can't do that without a permit.
well, I
And
didn't
your
even
stock,
think of
what do you
that.
do with your stock, for
That's
instance?
right, that's right. And so much of
so-
farming is time critical, right?
Absolutely. Say you had a fire and the fence is burnt down. Then what?
Yeah.
Can you put your fences back up? The legislation, from what I've been reading, is very vague, and so another part of it that really I find really troubling is that it talks about somebody coming to assess your property for whether you have to have a permit for this or that or the other thing. But there's no, it's so vague. One of the things, it talks about Aboriginal artefacts and those sort of things, but one of the things that they've introduced, I did hear Travis talking about the 1974 regulation, and I don't believe that this was in. It's talking about cultural landscapes,
I can
tangible
confirm it's
or
not.
intangible.
Yep.
How can anyone define an intangible cultural landscape?
Absolutely.
And I've actually gone through the 74 legislation and compared it to the current one.
Yep.
The landscape does not appear anywhere in the 1974 Act, and neither does knowledge holder, the term knowledge holder. That's
Wow.
a new title that they've created for a bureaucrat.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's a really interesting point that Christine raised on that one, because especially, first of all, there's a lot of time critical things. I know with wheat, if you leave your seeds in the soil for too long, mold, weevils, bacteria, and all that sort of stuff can really damage the crop as well. So on top of that, the biggest problem is you need to know what your expenses are. So especially on the finance side of things, because a lot of farmers run their farms off overdrafts.
Sure.
The problem is if they do need to have someone to come over to determine whether a farm or whatever is a site, if you've got a farm that's 10,000 hectares in size, like that's a big farm.
Absolutely.
One person cannot check the entire site. There's just no physical way for them to do that. So in the legislation, there's all these additional costs and charges and fee schedules in there. So
Sure.
it ranges from $80 an hour for the normal shit kicker person on the phone sort of thing to a Aboriginal expert is up to $300 an hour. And then on top of that, if they have to get lawyers, professionals, archaeologists and all that sort of stuff in, then all their charges as well will, from what I'm reading, will get then charged into the cost of this permit as well.
Completely untenable. Absolutely. Yeah.
The
Now,
problem is-
okay, from a financial point of view, we'll bring our finance guy in. Okay,
Yeah.
on this. Look, Derek, what are the implications here from that point of view?
Well, a couple. My biggest concern is going to discourage productivity, and that's really shocking. I mean, I see it as a real. When you attack the land, all wealth comes from the land.
Sure.
All right, gold, silver, precious metals. your crops, even your materials to build a building and
Of course
housing and that sort of stuff. Everything comes from the dirt. So this is a direct attack at the dirt, and a direct attack against people being able to produce things, particularly in Australia, like how Stephen Pettit highlighted, and he's absolutely right in the fact that Australia is built on the farmers and also on mining, and those two industries will be directly affected by this legislation, which has not been thought through. Because if you make it more difficult for people to produce, what do people do? See you later. I'm out of here. Goodbye. The roll-on effect, and that concerns me is not, never mind how this is going to affect food production in Australia, how you eat in the city slicker, but also, in terms of how they're going to produce an income from, in the mining industry, through to the reduced taxation that now the government will have, because people are going, we're not going to produce as much. We can't do this. Now, they may recoup some of this and trying to get permits, but this applying for permits and red tape, farmers don't want to do paperwork. They want to get out there with their hands and put a crop in. And
That's right.
produce agriculture. That's what they want to do. They don't want to have to be secretaries, and I think that's the biggest concern I see in this.
Well, yeah, you're dragging someone away from their area of expertise to put them there, playing paperwork. Ridiculous. When exactly right. If you want to be productive, you put people in the roles that they're good at. And if you're a farmer, yes, on the land, that's where you need to be. So you are breaking down productivity.
Okay. So one question I want to throw to Christine and Bernie is, now with the limited ability that you guys have had to actually read this legislation and try and dig your way through it, what is the biggest thing that needs, like, is this workable in any form as a farmer, or is there something that can be modified in this to still protect Aboriginal heritage, but also allow farmers and miners to do what they need to do?
Hello.
Christine, you're there.
Oh, yeah, I didn't hear that.
Yep. So,
Can you say that again?
yep. So with this legislation that you've seen so far, is there any way that you can think of for this to work? Is it even possible for this to work? Or if you change one certain section of it, or is this just totally an absolute stupid piece of legislation that needs to be scrapped entirely?
In my opinion, it has to be scrapped because there's so many levels and so many reasons. There's a few things. I might just bring up a few of them if you're interested.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
There's you're talking about people who have to come out and inspect your property. How do we know that those people are qualified to do that? As far as I'm concerned, there's nobody alive who actually knows.
Well,
What do you
yeah,
think about
this is the important thing about asking the questions, right? I mean, currently we're running in a one-party state here in Western Australia. Everything just gets pushed through. This was pushed through right in between lockdowns and all sorts of things in 2021. This hasn't been, that consultation has not been used, especially with the people it's actually going to affect. And yes, that is definitely farmers. Well, that is everybody, let's face it, but predominantly farmers and those in the mining industry.
Well, I think they're going to be actually looking at it from an Aboriginal heritage perspective as opposed to a farming perspective.
Spot on.
And I think
Spot
that's
on.
the problem with that is
Well,
you have people in
Can I
different.
just interrupt you? If there were sacred sites that have been identified, I think the average person would be quite okay with that. There's obviously some sites around the country which are, obviously respected and that sort of thing, and nobody has a problem with that. Well, I wouldn't think that people would have a problem with that. But Travis tells me that earlier on, the whole of the area from Geraldton to Southern Cross and to Esperance has been classified as Noongar country. And according to the legislation, that automatically means that you go into Tier 2, which makes a whole range of things have to happen. But all of that land doesn't necessarily have Aboriginal sites on it. For instance, Bernie's family have owned the property, some of the property, since 1905, and I had lots of very close conversations with his mother over the years, and she was born in 1900, and so she's lived on the property since 1940 or something, and she knew everything about everything and who was who and everything about the whole district. She could tell you everything, and never once did she mention anything about Aboriginal sites or people coming out to look at the sites or anything. So in the whole of that time, nobody's been ever interested in our property. So why now? Why now? And I don't believe that there's anyone alive who actually really honestly would know. And I don't know how you can justify somebody appointing somebody who's not qualified. So how can they be qualified?
So just for the people listening at home who probably don't understand this one, it was a couple of years ago, there was a native title settlement in WA. So it was all Noongar land. So everything Geraldton down to, I think it was Esperance. It was $750 million got paid out to the local Noongar tribe. So to put that into perspective, there's 30,000 Noongars in WA. That's the census figures. So it works out about $120,000 per family.
Wow.
So this is on top of everything else they get, like the mining royalties and all that sort of stuff. So what's happened is because of this native title claim, the Noongar people in WA have a documented, legislated claim on everything in WA. All of this land is theirs.
I am so sick of this.
So,
the fact is, this is one country full of so many fantastic people, right? And I'm sick of playing this game of Bagsies. We were here first, therefore we own it. We're not playing shotgun in the car here, okay? This country has so much to offer and so much to offer so many people. We've got to stop this absolute discrimination, because this is what it is, okay? It is discrimination. That's what it is.
That's
Full
all
stop.
it is. So, and it's taking discrimination to a whole nother level, because if the problem is they don't even say Aboriginal elders or anything like this to do the inspections, they say Aboriginal experts. So if you got someone who identifies as an Aboriginal expert,
Sure.
they're not be getting paid up to $300 an hour to walk around on your property.
Incredible.
Like there's so much bullshit to go into this. It's insane. So
Not to mention the costs of travel to your property as well for those
Yeah.
in the farming. So you're talking about air flights, potentially travel, cars, accommodation, overnight stay, and meals.
like there's so many things in this. So one of the things that we're trying to organize is on the 5th of this next month, we'll be at the Christine, can you confirm the name of the hall?
It's the 3rd of July
3rd of July. I keep saying the
at
5th.
at the Peaceful Hall, PIESSEVILLE. It's a little hall, local hall between Wagen and Narrogin.
So, and for the people who are listening, the buzzing is because Christine's on the farm. The mobile coverage is terrible, and so we're just amazed that she's been able to stick in as long as she has. Yep.
Your mic's off. Your mic's off.
Aaron, your mic's
Oh,
off.
my mics. That's very helpful. There we go. Fantastic. All right. Well, we do actually need a break there, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, we'll have a quick break. Back really soon.
I think we need to ask a question. What is the implication of this on farming in WA, broadly
So-
speaking, and also then Australia? I think we
Hey,
need to
Christine.
this-
Christine, can you still hear us? No. No. All right. So she's going to be hearing music at the moment.
Yeah.
So can you send Christine a message saying after a song, we'll bring her back in? Woohoo. So
I'm trying every trick I can to clean up this.
No, that's the internet connection. Telephone connection. What we might have to do is hang up on Christine and redo the connection. Get rid of the buzz. I think it's on the Telstra side of things.
I've just done that.
Yeah, spot on. AW71. By the way, for the people listening online, we'll go on to the internal mics. Just let us know that you can hear us okay.
Should I tell her to stay on the phone?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I've hung up on her, right?
Oh.
So I'll call back.
The joys of internet coverage and mobile networks in Australia is absolutely terrible. But I'm actually kind of amazed that it's stayed connected as long as it has.
You know what? It doesn't really matter, but the quality of the audio, the reality is what she's got to say, and what Bernie's got to say as well.
Yeah, 5 times 5. There we go. AW71. So there's so many different sections. So let's say you get burst water mains. Like, what are you supposed to do with that?
I think there is a provision for emergency situations that I saw in the Act here. I've been looking at it.
Yeah, but what's considered an emergency? Something that puts
Exactly.
property or life at risk. That's generally what the definition of emergency is. So a burst water main, yes, it's annoying, but it's not critical.
It is critical because water provides life, right?
Yeah,
If you don't fix the water, you got a problem.
yeah. Most of these farms don't have water mains.
That's right.
So
They have tanks, water
Yeah.
tanks.
Tanks and balls.
do you know what's considered to be within mobile coverage? If
Right.
you're within 1 hour of reception.
Right.
So if you don't have reception on your farm and you can drive for 1 hour to get coverage, you are considered within mobile coverage. So with water, yes, you've got a leaking water tank and you run out of all your water.
Mm.
Can you ship water in? Therefore, it's not considered an emergency.
Mm.
So
It is if there's a fire on your doorstep.
yeah, spot on. So fire definitely would be considered an emergency.
Mhm.
Oh, we got Aiden from Adelaide. I love it when we get people from different states coming in. So AW71, he's been in on quite a few shows now. So thanks for being part of one of the contributors.
Thanks, mate.
This is
Very
awesome.
much appreciate that.
Now I have to ask, just so everyone's aware, we do have the new mobile app. That's what I should start doing, is putting the QR code for the downloads.
Yes, please do.
We'll get a image so we can put that into all our live streams as well.
Okay.
So please, if you've got an Android phone, jump on to download the app. It links directly with people's cars if they've got like Google Play or what are they calling in the cars?
Yeah.
Bluetooth connect.
CarPlay.
Oh, we've got, well, not plenty of time. We've got this, but we've got 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Did you want to send Christine a message, say 4 minutes? Just so she knows. And also, people, please do make sure you give us any messages if you want to talk about anything as well, any topics you want us to cover. Also, Robin from Courage is the Cure. Thanks for jumping in.
Hey, Robin.
She sent a message to you, Aaron. Great to see you on Saturday, Aaron. That was at the Topher Field event.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was very brief. I didn't actually get to catch up properly, and I saw a little bit of your interview the other day or yesterday as well, Robin. So excellent work on that. The bit that I saw, absolutely top notch.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to going back and watching some more.
So everyone, this is one of the things I want to start seeing happening in WA, because I see this a lot over east, but it's not so much done over here. What I'd love to see is all the people who subscribe to our channel. I want to see everyone subscribe to Courage is the Cure, Cafe Lockout. What else is it? Freedom Media WA.
Yep.
What Scorpion Media.
Sure.
De Silva. What's Aaron's one? De Silva.
Oh yeah, well, Alan.
Alan.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that Alan or Aaron?
Alan.
I've been calling him Aaron.
Oh, there you go. No
So
worries.
there's a funny story to that one. One of my housemates was Korean, and his name was Alan, but because of his Korean accent, it sounded like he kept saying Aaron. It's like, oh, your name's Aaron. He's like, no, Alan. And so for ages, we were calling him the wrong name.
Also Max Freedom as well. Really
Max-
good video
yes,
stuff.
Richie.
Fantastic.
Richie does some amazing stuff. So please make sure you reach out to all the independent media stuff.
2.5 minutes.
Keep my headphones down just a fraction, please.
Yeah, please, because the thing is, we're trying to
That's better,
counter
thank you.
Channel 7. We may not always cover the same things. We may not have the same perspective on everything, but that's part of having free speech. You
Absolutely.
need to be able to have an open and frank discussion with things.
It's good
So-
to take in different opinions. Always.
Thanks, Josh Silver of WA, of Western Australia.
Of
That
course.
was,
It's Alan. Yeah.
and if you can think of any others, just chuck them in the chat so people can hunt them down. Even better, put the links to their direct pages so that way we can
Right.
actually just go jump there, do what needs to be done. And again, I hate sounding like the twats over in America, but like and share and subscribe to this channel.
It's important. It's absolutely
I
important.
hate to say it, it
Yeah.
actually really is, because if we can get all these channels over, like for example, Facebook, YouTube, and all that, generally it's 1,000 subscribers, and then they can monetize all the channels, and then through all the views, they can start using YouTube funding to make sure those channels stay alive.
Yep.
If the channels have subscription services like ours, please jump on board. It's as little as $2 a month for the Scrooge McDuck, and or is that the free one?
That's
That's the free one. Well,
We'd like to actually.
can't remember
I'd
what we call
like to
it.
encourage a Hey Big Spender, which is $10
that's
a
the
month.
$10.
Yeah, $10 a month.
$2
Really fantastic if you could get on board with that.
I think it's like-
basically helping
Oh,
promote free speech.
or something.
I can't remember.
There was some stupid comment
Oh,
for
there
it.
you
So.
go. Yep.
But yeah, it really, really does help. It helps to pay for the lights and all that stuff, such as the internet, and with everything going up in price, so it really does help. Time frame.
Till we're back on?
Yep.
Yes, we are back on in 1 minute and 7 seconds.
A little bit of cool, huh?
Yeah. No, I've got it ready to go. So it's all good.
Oh, okay.
So the big thing. What was the question you wanted me to ask, Christine?
We need to go broader and say what effects it's going to have on farming in WA.
As a,
What are the implications for Australia as well? Touch that audience. And what are the practical things that are going to be done about this to fight this, to actually go, hey, this is a problem.
Okay. I think they're great topics. Now, for people listening online as well, if you do have any questions you want to ask Christine or Derek in regards to finance questions, please fire them through in the comments section. Just be aware we can't do personal advice in this one. We are not financial planners.
All right, guys, we're back in a few seconds, 20 seconds basically.
All right, switching mics. I have the hiccups.
Have you called them?
What?
They're online?
There on there.
Shine, shine, let's go to shine, shine.
Heritage Radio Australia, the greater world. A bit feeling very shy indeed, and always am. Like to float to the background of things. Travis likes to rub his beard on the.
No, that was me making sure the microphone was.
Oh,
in
right.
properly.
Okay. High technical things. Yes. The on off switch. Really very technical, mate. Look, great to have our special guest back on the phone. Just want to make sure we're still in contact. Have we got Christine and Bernie there?
Hello, yes, we have.
Oh, look at that. We've got a winner. I'm going to throw straight to Derek on this one.
So we've been
Hang on,
discussing-
Hang on. Sorry, jump in. There's a few people on the good old socials who, long-time listeners, who we're just going to give a quick shout out. Josh, welcome back.
Great.
So that's Josh McCurry
fantastic.
from UWA, former candidate for Palmer United. So welcome back to the stream, Josh.
Appreciate
Great
that.
having you here. Now, Derek.
Today we've been discussing the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act 2021, and it's come out to light that if you dig deeper than 50 millimetres on your property, you might be in breach of this act that the West Australian government is trying to pass or has passed and comes into effect from the 1st of July. Huge implications, not only for the mining industry, but of course the backbone of our nation, the farmers, Bernie and Christine Evans, who are farmers on the land and have been for all their lives, as far as I'm aware. We've been discussing the implications for this. Guys, I want to, first of all, thank you for joining us today. And what effect will this have on farming in WA?
Oh, it'll be huge. I just wanted to just correct you there on one thing to get it correct, Derek. The depth that you can dig to is 50 centimetres.
50 centimetres, okay.
Yep.
I
Okay.
thought he said 50 millimetres.
I did say millimetres. Thanks for that correction.
Mm.
I mean, so the half a metre, basically.
Yes. So,
Yeah, or
in
not
other
quite a-
words, if you want to put a fence post or like do deep ripping for your crops or anything like that, that would be necessary.
Your long drop toilets.
Just on
another
that
one.
topic of cropping and stuff, how do you know that that's not going to tangibly or intangibly change the landscape?
Oh, exactly.
Well, it's even tearing down an old tree, right? Which could be a problem that, let's say it falls near a shed or a barn or even a house, and, that tree needs to come down. To get down to the root systems, you might need to go further than half a metre.
Guarantee you do.
Yeah.
The other thing as well, it's not just the digging down into the soil, it's also changing. This is where the landscape one gets really interesting. If you're changing the landscape over a certain meterage, so I did see a comment there from AW71 saying 5 metres by 5 metres, which is 25 square metres. So if, for example, harvesting a crop, you're not digging into the ground, but you are still pruning the tops of the plants, you're changing the landscape. So if there's a tree that needs to come down because it's near power lines or it's a danger, or you're clearing out a fire break, if you're doing more than 25 square metres, you need a permit.
So back to the question, Christine, how do you think this is going to have effect on farming in WA?
Well, as I said to you, I don't think it's sustainable or workable or any of those things. And I think it's putting a lot of fear into people, really. My understanding of that, the fines of not doing this are huge, and it's larger for business than it is for single people
Sure.
or ordinary people. But all farmers are business people.
That's right.
So that increases their the ability for whoever to find them to a much greater degree. And there's no farms that will be able to sustain those fines because, people think farmers are rich and maybe they've got a lot of assets, but most farmers are working on overdraft,
That's right.
So a lot of them are close to the wire. If they have a good year, well, they can bring that back. And if they have a bad year, they're further down under the wire, so to speak, And so it's a really worrying time for them. And the other thing that people don't think about is that all the businesses that farmers support, all the local towns, the service providers, the machinery providers, the fuel providers, the schools and teachers and banks. The banks are closing everywhere now anyway.
You're a
So
very,
all
very
that-
important link in the chain here. Hugely.
Pardon?
You're a very important link in the chain here.
Absolutely. And so I think that eventually, if this goes through, there's a possibility of people starving in Western Australia. That's how bad I think it is.
Yeah.
So it goes further than that as well, because you got to remember a lot of our grain and food we also export.
Yes.
So there's
True.
also the export incomes as well. So it's not let's say because of the fines, the farmers start putting in smaller crops.
Mhm.
So our export amounts are going to be reduced. What's on the shelves are going to be reduced. We already have enough pressures on families as it is. So when there's a supply and demand issues, like we saw with the cyclone that went through Carnarvon and wiped out the banana crops,
Yes.
all of a sudden bananas went from $1.99 a kilo to $27 a kilo.
Yeah.
So if there's a supply issue on food into WA and the rest of Australia and internationally, what's that going to do to inflation across Australia already? People are
course.
already struggling. So the flow-on effect. So I consider farming and mining to be the foundations of the Australian economy. Everything else is built around that in one way or another. So I truly don't believe Labor has thought anything about this.
Let's talk about the flow-on effect at the moment. Christina, are you concerned this can go ahead in Western Australia? There are also implications for it happening in the other parts of Australia.
Oh, absolutely. My understanding that Anna in Queensland is looking at it, and if this goes through, when I say comfortably, but it does go through and it is implemented, she's looking at introducing that in Queensland.
Yeah, there is actually
So-
currently a petition going around about that because, yes, they have drafted the legislation apparently in Queensland. I don't know if it's actually been before the Parliament yet, but it has been drafted. And there, as I say, there is something we can do as far as the, objecting to that. And, I think that where I'm going to go on this is, okay, if we've got this in Western Australia already, we're going to, if we go through with this carry on with the voice, if Australia does say yes, the added complication, this is just going to literally bankrupt farmers right across this nation rather.
What's your long-term concern about this, Christine? Is it, like Aaron's highlighted here, bankruptcy and that other corporations internationally come in, buy up the Australian farms and take them over? We've seen certain nations do that to our land here in Australia. What are your long-term concerns about this?
I think it's a possibility. Are they going to have to abide by the rules as well, or do? My understanding is that overseas investors don't have to abide by as many rules, but I don't understand enough about that to make a comment on it really.
I can help with that one.
I do know that there are a lot of people from overseas, Europe, Germany, and China, for instance, are buying up Australian land.
Yeah. So what happens with things like that? The organisation enters into what's called a state agreement. So they negotiate a deal with whatever company is buying whatever. Same sort of thing as the Mineralogy Act that the WA state government had with Clive Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
They enter into negotiations. So everything from tax rates to permits, costs, expenses, what the government's going to do versus what they're going to do, everything is negotiable, everything's on the table. So if there is a large company that wants to buy off these lands, part of the condition of the sale with the state agreement could be that they do not have to apply for these permits.
Right.
So that is a very plausible.
So where's
possibility.
the level playing field here?
There isn't one. That's
Exactly.
the biggest thing across the board in all aspects, whether it's financial investments,
But hang on. It's
corporations.
called a fair trade agreement. The
No,
word
no.
fair's in it. I mean,
Oh,
come on.
Let's ask this. And Christine, I don't know you and Bernie are the ones that are qualified to ask this question, but I want to ask it anyway. What do you think is the government's motivation for passing such an act?
Well, it's really there's two schools of thought. Some people just think it's totally irresponsible and they don't know what they're doing. But I think there's a deeper thing behind this, and it's really hard to explain what it is. But when people want to take over people and control them, or what they do is they starve them.
It's really
And then-
funny because Josh McCurry has also just written, almost like the elite want to us hungry and scared.
Yes.
So,
Well, look-
so continue that, Christine. You were about to launch into a second thought there. What was it? So, what people are hungry, and what was the other part?
Just go back a step. It's really hard to hear. So, what was the original question?
So the
But
question is,
how-
my original question was this: what do you think it was that is motivating the government to do such a legislation? What do you think's behind that? And you said there were two schools of thoughts. Some thought they haven't thought it through. Some people think that they haven't thought that. And you were going on about you were mentioning there's something deeper than that.
Yeah, well, that's my two things. I think it's been a long time in the planning, and the reality is that they slipped it through in 2021, calling it emergency legislation. How can it be emergency legislation, really?
Oh,
There's no consultation with people. People didn't know what was going on because everyone was concerned about COVID and being locked up and wearing masks and all that stuff. And so they brought this in. Why would you bring something in unless you had some sort of agenda?
I agree. I agree. I think this is deeply agenda driven. Yeah.
And what do you think
There
that
is
is,
an
that
agenda.
agenda? What do you
Yeah.
think the agenda is, Christine?
It's like taking over control of our country. Maybe it's part of taking over control of the world. Australian people are very, what's the word? Bernie says laid back, but I don't think they take being bossed around. I suppose it's our convict heritage, really, being told what to do fairly easily. And it's been fairly obvious recently that people have been
I've always
doing
said
what
this.
they've been told to do.
I've always said that the Australians' apathy is the greatest thing about being Australian, but it's also the worst thing about Australians. That whole layback thing that Bernie said, it has brought us undone. Certainly over the last 3 years, it has, no doubt.
So what tangible actions can people do about this, Christine and Bernie?
All right, Christine, did you hear that question?
Oh,
Christine, we got you there. Can you hear us?
Hang on, Aaron, something's going on your phone there. So just while we check to see if we've got Christine back here. So
Something happened with my phone.
yeah,
no,
okay,
they're
she's back.
definitely there. They're definitely there.
Okay, Christine, sorry, what tangible things do you think we can do about this?
I couldn't hear you there, Derek.
What tangible things do you think what people are able to do to support you guys in this? What can be done?
I think that in the past, farmers have never been united. I feel quite emotional about this, but it's time for people to get together and be united. It's really an opportunity, I think, to be united. Forget your differences. There's different organisations, but it's time for people to forget petty differences, philosophies, this, that and the other thing, and be united against a tyranny, really, because it is tyranny.
Absolutely.
And so therefore, if people come together and truly come to some sort of arrangement that can work, and this is the things that we need to discuss at our meeting. I think it'll be just a foundational meeting, really, that we hope will spread across the country, to actually take steps to do something about it. And Travis has spoken to us about the way we can do it politically, and I think that's a way to do it, definitely a way to do it, because to change the parliament, and it seems like an impossible project, but in actual fact, nothing's impossible.
No, and I don't think actually, to be honest with you, I don't think that's a massive change either.
What support do the country folk need from the city folk?
I think it's education and understanding what it all means. I think most city folk probably don't even know that it's happening. And I guess we're in the process of doing that by having this radio conversation. But I think maybe, I don't know, what do you have? Do you know what the question was? No. What support do you think country folk need from city folk?
Probably political support. Political
support, Bernie says.
Yeah.
Political in the sense of learning how to vote, to create a situation where the upper house can block legislation until this is turned around, because it's an act of parliament which can be turned around.
Of course it is.
And it's different from the voice, because the voice, if that ever comes into fruition, it'll be really, really difficult to ever change that. But an act of parliament can be repealed. So in the meantime, if farmers take steps to reduce their production and that sort of thing, I guess it's understanding from city people what they're trying to achieve.
Mhm.
Because because there's no doubt the prices will go up one way or the other. If we do nothing, the prices will go up for food,
No doubt.
and if we do something, it will in the short term.
At least it's controllable at that stage. So what Christine is talking about is effectively for people working in the city with an everyday job, it's a thing called a go slow.
Yeah, sure.
So let's say your boss has been a bit of a twat. So instead of doing the extra work and making sure you do a good job, you work to the letter of your contract.
Okay.
Okay. You annoy the boss, your productivity goes down, and then that forces them to the negotiation table.
Sure.
Because the foundations of the Australian economy, and I'm not just talking for mining, farming here, I'm also talking for mining as well.
Okay.
If we do an intentional go slow, so instead of, let's say you use, say, 10 ton worth of seeds, put 9 ton of seeds out instead. So you still got a crop, you're still harvesting, you're still working, you still got money coming in, so you can still meet your financial obligations, but you're not producing as much.
Okay.
So what's happening is you're pulling supply from the market, which forces prices up. And you tell people straight up, we are doing this intentionally to send a message to the government. You don't repeal this act, we are going to keep removing food from our produce until you come to the negotiation table. Unless you've got representation actually on the floor of Parliament, there's nothing you can do. Talking to the representation side of things, it annoys the absolute bejesus out of me, because we've just gone through 3 years of arguably the most spineless Liberal government we've ever had, or opposition we've ever had. And it's only now that the Liberal parties are finding their voice. It's only now that they're starting to stand up for things. Where were they 3 years ago when this legislation was being tabled in Parliament? Why are now that it's already changed that they're starting to bark? So it's too late. The ship's already sailed. So the other thing that I've organized, and this is in conjunction with Global Wealth Club, which is really amazing. Global Wealth Club have agreed to do a series of free webinars for farmers so the background behind Warren is asset protection. So he's arguably one of the best asset protectors in Australia. So he's actually going to be coming out to do some presentations out in the wheat belt and surrounding areas to actually teach farmers what's going to happen if they stop producing, what can the banks do, what can the local council do, so that way they can arm themselves with as much knowledge as possible in the lead up to this. So if the permit does hit the fan, if they do start copping fines, if this happens, how to deal with it, what to expect and stuff like that, so they're not blindsided by this. Because I think the biggest source of fear in a lot of the farmers at the moment, they don't know.
Exactly.
They're totally blind at this stage. So, and I'm amazed with Christine and Bernie. So thank you very much for coming on to the show today for us.
Thank you, guys.
You can hear it in Christine's voice. It's taken a lot for her to be on here today. And with Telstra trying to be wankers and all that sort of stuff and trying to interrupt the connection, you can already see how hard it is not being able to communicate. And now this is happening. It's
Absolutely.
just hit after hit after hit for the last couple of decades with our farmers. And I think it's time us city people, because I'll openly admit, I'm from a farming background. My family has a station over in Leighton, New South Wales. My mum used to have a truffle farm down in Denmark. Like, I've been around farming. I know what it's like, but I'm a city slicker. You ask me to drive a tractor, I'm not very good. I'll probably flip it. So, but it's about time us city people actually started understanding that all the luxuries we have is because of people like Bernie and Christine and their hard work.
For so many years, we used to say Australia rides on the sheep's back. That being a big part of it, meaning agriculture was the foundation of this country. Why have we forgotten that? Oh, because of mining? Come on. The reality is, farmers are not. It's not a job. Okay, it's a calling, it's a way of life. It's actually someone who cares for the land and nurtures the land and creates something, that we all benefit from. And I think people need to stop thinking of the farmers as, like an us and them when you're talking about city folk and country folk. We're Australians, simple as that. And we should all be pulling in the same direction.
Yep. But the one thing to remember, that this wasn't caused by the farmers. This is them just trying to survive.
Absolutely.
So whatever happens, whenever if you start seeing the prices going up and the government starts having stabs at the farmers saying, oh, this is because of the farmers or this is that reason. No. This is their mismanagement. This is all because the government has failed. And I'm talking generations of Labor, Liberal. So we need to start standing up as Australians as a whole and stop voting these bastards in. They've had their chance. They've failed. It's time we stop voting for them.
Time for a break, gentlemen. It's Edge Radio Australia, the Grey Wealth.
All right, in-house mics. So it's 1:50. How long are we going to go for?
Let this be the topic today. I don't think we just detract from it. I think this be the topic. Do you agree?
If you could see your hair right now, it's hilarious. When you took your headphones off, like the big chunk came out.
Oh, shit. Hello, everybody. I need a haircut.
So a couple of messages coming through. A lot of support for the farmers, actually.
As it should be. That's fantastic.
Good old Peter to freaking control us and be surfs without surfboards.
Yeah.
He spelled boards wrong, but that's okay. We love Peter anyway. Josh, if everyone is breaking the law, then it is unenforceable. We need to be unmanageable. If all the farmers, If all the farmers stop shipping to the cities entirely for 2 days, this law would be repealed. I don't think 2 days would be enough. The biggest, I think you have to look at a sustained campaign.
When we come back, it's going to be very short. So
It's pretty much just a wrap up.
Yeah,
a promotion for.
No, I mean Bernie Christine. You still have them?
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, I think when we come back, we just do promote the event again.
I agree wholeheartedly. So when we come back, we're going to have 3 minutes and 14 seconds. To
You know what? That might be a Monday. What's the 3rd?
Okay, I'll let them know. So coming back to you in what? How much?
I thought it was the 5th.
Coming back to you in 4.5 minutes.
Just like after the show, we'll give them a call while we're driving because I need to confirm the 3rd or the 5th because I had the 5th booked in. So yeah, one of the biggest problems we really need to, it's the short-term crops that's going to be the big kicker.
Okay.
Like lettuce, tomatoes, pumpkins, potatoes, all that sort of stuff. Like the spudshed, everything that the spudshed grows.
Okay.
Because high turnovers. Lettuce is another one. They're the staple diets that we have. So people can skip rice because you're buying like big 20 kilo bags. So, you just wait it out. That's fine. This needs to be, instead of just having 1 or 2 farmers saying no, we need a little bit.
It's going to be very hard to talk that many people into doing the same thing.
And that's why we're saying the original plan was actually just go for a 12-month holiday. So, and there's a lot of farmers who, and this is how close it is. If you don't put a crop in for 1 year, they're bankrupt. And that's how
It affects 2 years worth of produce.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they have to keep putting, and I've always wondered why you see those farmers that have these amazing crops, they harvest it and then they dump it. And you think, why are you dumping so much stock? And then it's because if you don't harvest that year, disease, pests, and all that sort of stuff that comes in because they haven't harvested properly, it affects the entire crop. So even if they don't sell, they've still got to harvest it.
Of course,
So especially things like
Can't let
orchards
them
and all
rot,
that sort of stuff. So here we go. Josh is on fire today. By 3 days, it starts showing on the shelves. In 48 hours, the supermarkets will be screaming out the government because the suppliers will be out of things like milk, eggs. So again, milk and eggs are an immediate crop.
Of course.
They're immediate.
Well, you look at the price of lettuce. Okay, using lettuce eggs have been a big issue over the last sort of 6 months. The price of them is absolutely crazy. We made a joke a couple of days ago about needing a carton of beer, but a carton of eggs is starting to become more expensive.
Will this push the supermarkets to go into direct farming even more if this occurs? They've been trying to do that in the dairy market, as we know, and produce their own brand.
From my experience with farming, the biggest problem is having someone who's going to, knowing you've got someone to buy your stock. having that security. Because if you had to go and negotiate all the deals for your produce
Oh,
yourself, you wouldn't be able to do it. So that's why places like, I think it's CH,
That one, I know the word.
I think that's the code word for it, the algorithm. Having a company to do all the negotiations for you is an absolute godsend for farmers.
Yeah.
So you just go, right, we're selling it. Unless you've got a very niche crop like truffles, because with Mum's Farm, they had the restaurants going direct to the farm.
1.5 minutes.
And that's where the problem is. A lot of these farmers probably have contracts to produce X amount of product per year or whatever. So there's going to be.
Now, how can you have a contract like that? Okay, does that take into account weather and that sort of thing?
Futures market.
Yeah. So
Buy a
there's,
futures contract, which is like an insurance policy to protect against that on the stock market.
Okay,
and then
makes sense.
farmers also have insurance policies that once a crop has sprouted, they go, right, this crop should get us, say, X amount of ton.
Yep.
So then they have an insurance policy to make sure that that crop produces that amount of crop.
Okay,
If it doesn't,
make a claim. Okay,
Yeah.
to make a shortfall. Okay.
so that's how they ensure and able to survive. So farming's not as simple as
Oh, no.
put some seeds in the ground and make some
Hugely
money.
complex.
No, there's a lot to it. So it is a
45
full-time
cents.
business. How many?
45.
45. So
So basically, I'll open it up. And you'll be running at home. So you've got basically you run at home with 3 minutes and 13 seconds. Right, let's do it.
how long? What song is this?
Australia. Lock up those daughters. Well, not these days. I'm pretty old, to be honest with you. That's about 30 years ago. It's Malou with you as part of the wonderful show we like to call The Greater Wealth with Derek Whittaker to my left, and over there, Mr. Carter.
You know, I've got two daughters, right?
I know.
Did you see the video I put up of Estelle?
No. That was so.
That was Estelle before her burns.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if you watched it all the way through. At the end, she falls over.
No, I didn't see
Yeah.
it full of. Okay. Okay. So you're torturing your kids on video. I love that, mate. Thank you.
Well, she was 12 months old there.
Very.
And like
very,
when she runs,
very
but she's
cute.
still in the nappy, like she gets the full bum wiggle, and then she falls over, and it's hilarious. So it was so cute.
A big thanks to our guests online as well for Christine and Bernie, which I'm not sure if you're still there. If you are there, thank you very much. Are you there?
Yes, we are
Oh,
here.
lovely. Cool. Well, you just don't know when it comes to the old Telstra lines, do you?
No.
You're there, you're
Absolutely
gone. Playing Russian roulette with the old telephone lines here. I'll throw over to Travis. Travis, let's finish the show.
So the one thing I wanted to really highlight is jump onto the government website. There are a few of these workshops left over. So if you are a farmer, please ensure you get to one of them. The closest to Perth is the northern one. That's actually booked out. There's heaps. There's a heap right up north, like Karratha, Kununurra, and all that sort of stuff. They're all booked out. All the ones south of the Carnarvon are all booked out as well. So if you are close to one and it's open, please get there anyway. Just listen. You need to know these things because this is going to determine your future as a farmer. On top of that, we do have the event in Wagen. So Christine, I'll just confirm, was that a Wednesday or a Monday? Because I thought it was the Wednesday.
It's Monday, the 3rd of July at 10 a.m.
There we go. It's Monday, 3rd of July. So
Glad someone's onto it.
Aaron, I won't be in on Monday. So I'm sorry, but having the comedic relief on the Monday is second to this. So I will
Not
be
comedic, trust me.
Oh, thanks, Aaron.
We have other words.
So I will be committing to be at Wagen for that event.
Awesome. Really important, mate. And I tell you what, we'd rather you were there. And all jokes aside, it's far too important. Yeah.
Yep. Now, Christine, just to confirm, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yes,
Yeah. So 10 o'clock at the
at the Peaceful Hall. It's between Wagen and Origin.
Yep. And so we will be creating a event for that one. So I'm
Great.
not even going to tell Aaron this. I'm just going to chuck it up on the website, chuck it in the comment sections and the social medias. So if you are in the local area and you are a farmer, I personally, not just as a radio show host, but also the other stuff that I do, I'm not wearing my hat today, so you won't see it. So I do want to get up there to talk to farmers, find out what's going on, and effectively, I want to be down in the what do they call it? Down in the trenches with them as well, because this is
In the dirt,
in the dirt.
literally in the dirt,
Yeah, literally,
Yeah.
exactly.
So it's,
even further than 50 centimeters.
you know,
I bear him up to his neck in this because this is absolutely ridiculous, and I think we
Yeah.
should all carry shovels. I really do.
I'm
Pitchforks
thoroughly
and
with
torches.
pitchforks. We'll
Your,
go with
your
pitchforks.
shovel is going to be your symbol, guys, of liberty here.
Absolutely.
No. We need pitchforks and torches, and on the steps of Parliament. Can you imagine, like, just dressed up as hillbillies, getting up on the streets of Parliament and just dumping a heap of potatoes?
Can we
or
just keep
something
away
on
from the
steps?
sickles, please? All right, with that.
Sickles and hammers?
If people want to know more information, how can they get it?
Message me on Stalkbook.
Okay,
Facebook
fantastic.
is probably the easiest, or you can reach me on the phone number. You know what? I'm going to dox myself here. So 0404 312 427 is my direct personal phone number. So yeah. Don't call me before 10 a.m. I'm still asleep. I'm generally awake till about 3 o'clock in the morning. So call me night times, not mornings.
Edge Radio Australia, the greater wealth.
All right. Did you want to hang up on a Christine? Then we'll give her a call on the mobile phone, Derek. All right. We're still on the studio. We're still streaming live. Here we go. Josh wants to organise a couple of trucks of manure to be put on the door at Parliament House. I've always wanted to see that happen. I just can't be the driver. Ashley,
What's
Do you
that?
want to call them?
They're on the phone right there. Go for it.
Hey guys, thanks so much.
you
You
want
did
to chuck on a
great.
speaker?
Both of you, fantastic.
Thanks, Robin.
Oh, sorry. You did fantastic. You came across really clearly, and yeah, well done.
Really passionate too, which is important.
Yeah, and passionate.
Courage is secure is saying goodbye.
Oh, yeah, Rob. Thanks for being part of the show. Hey, really appreciate that.
So I'm just waiting to see if anyone's got any questions for us,
Yeah.
because we do have Christine and Bernie still on the phone. So if you want a couple
Yeah,
of
that's a
off-air
good point.
questions, feel
That's
free
a
to
good
chuck them
point.
through.
It's about taking your power back and going, no, it's not going to be done this way. It's going to be done this way, guys.
So, and if anyone else is aware of any other problems that's going on in society at the moment, and they want us to raise them, please reach out to us, because that's the whole purpose of Edge Radio.
Spot on. Exactly right. Truth and transparency. 101.
Where's my storybook? All right, and also for people who missed the comments,
Very good.
I've just chucked my
Very
phone
good.
number into the chat.
Thank you for being flexible and jumping on today at last notice, and we do appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Here's a thought. I just saw Ray sent me a message on something different. Here's a septic tank
Mhm.
pumper.
Oops, sorry.
Ray, that's what's his
Yeah,
business.
yeah,
He
yeah.
pumps septic tanks, but
Yeah.
that's meters into the ground.
Yeah,
I wonder if
good
they would
point.
ask him
Good
if
point.
he needs a permit for every
Yeah.
single thing he does.
Is this? I mean, the permit is a once-off, or is it a
It's
continual for every
years.
every
4
4
years.
years? Okay, every 4 year type of contract. Yeah.
But they don't say whether that covers all activities on the premise, or is it just for per activity?
Yeah, for sure. And farmers change their products all the time. This is now, there's a market for this. We'll go this way.
Here we go. Labor's
Yeah.
also cutting the water allowances to market gardeners as well on top of it. So, the one thing I wanted to talk about but I never got a chance to is how the interaction
Yeah,
between
no.
the three legislations.
Well, yeah, that's more with the voice point of view or the other.
No, not the voice. The Native Title Act, this Act, and the amended one.
Okay.
because there's so many. This
But the amended
Yeah,
one will
it'd be a great problem to
override
have.
the original
Look, I
sentence.
probably, and it's
so
probably
the
one of
difference
many
between
meetings
the
you guys
amended
will
ones
have to
and
do
the
as
current one,
well,
the
I
amount of
imagine.
changes
So,
is
yeah.
nearly, and
I hope it goes
it's
well
got
on
the same
Monday.
framework, but it's just.
I've sent you the
It's
details
like,
of
oh,
that
here's
lady
one
who wants
tree,
to
here's
touch
another
in
tree, but
Albany
one's
as
a
well.
peach tree, one's a nectarine tree. Like they're totally different. So
She is.
so yeah.
No, she's
All right,
a
if we haven't got
farmer.
any
She's out
questions,
there
what I'll
and
do,
she's
I'm going
quite
to shut
active
down the
in
stream.
things, so quite
Feel
passionate.
free to send me
So,
text message, phone call, or a PM if you want to have a
Sabina.
chat about this. Or if you
Yeah.
you are a farmer, you want to find more information, go to
Fantastic.
find out where you can find your own information. Again,
Thanks,
please reach
Christine.
out to me. So, all right, guys.
Thanks,
Have a
Bernie.
great
See you
night, and
guys.
we'll see you
Bye.
later. See you, Christine.